No one dies. Wait, what? No one dies ever? Are we all immortal? And if that's true, did I just find a loophole to avoid paying taxes forever? Let's be honest. We've all heard someone say, "I'm dead," after a bad joke. But guess what? Turns out they're completely, utterly, and hilariously wrong. I know. This sounds like one of those late-night existential crises we all have at 2 a.m. But today, we're not just questioning reality for fun. We're diving into a profound message from none other than Sri Anandamayi Ma, a woman who didn't just talk about life and death, but made people question if they had ever truly existed in the first place. You were never born, and you'll never die. That statement alone sounds like the plot twist of a mind-bending thriller. You can almost hear the dun-dun sound effect. But don't worry, there are no jump scares here. Just deep truths that might completely shift the way you see, well, everything. So, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and prepare to explore an idea that could turn your entire perception of life inside out. When the body ceases to function, when the breath stops, the heart stills, and the physical form dissolves, we call it death. But is it truly the end? Or is it merely the shedding of an outer shell, like removing a worn-out garment? Imagine life as wearing a coat. You put it on because it serves a purpose. It keeps you warm, it protects you. But eventually, the coat becomes worn, tattered, or simply no longer fits. Do you grieve its loss? No. You take it off and move forward. Now, apply this to the body. It serves us for a time, allowing us to experience, love, and grow. But like the coat, it too will eventually wear out. And when that moment arrives, we release it. But here's the key. You are not the body. You are the one who wore it. And just as you do not vanish when you change clothes, you do not cease to exist when the body falls away. Life is not a static thing. It is a continuous, ever-flowing movement. Consider a river. Its water is always changing, always moving, yet the river itself remains. A single drop may fall away, merging into something greater, but the river does not cease to exist. Likewise, you are not defined by your body, but by the eternal flow of your consciousness. The great illusion arises when we identify too closely with the temporary forms of life. We see ourselves as separate, isolated beings, forgetting that we are part of something far greater, a flow that never truly ends. Birth and death are merely transitions, moments within the grand unfolding of existence. This is the truth that Sri Anandamayi Ma points to when she says, "You were never born, and you will never die." The body, the form, is impermanent, but the consciousness that you are is eternal. It was never created, and it cannot be destroyed. Think of life as a grand theater. You step onto the stage, take on a role, experience joy and sorrow, and when the play ends, you step off. But does the actor die when the play is over? No. The actor simply prepares for a new role. Likewise, when the body falls away, you are not gone. You are simply transitioning, moving from one experience to the next. The fear of death comes from forgetting this truth. We become so attached to the character we are playing that we forget we are the actor behind it. But just as we do not mourn the child we once were, because we understand that child was always part of us, so too should we not mourn the passing of the body. You are not this body. You are the awareness behind it, the witness, the presence, the consciousness that has always been and always will be. The body is merely a vessel, a temporary form through which you experience life, and when it wears out, It is not an ending. It is simply a transition. So when the body falls away, what is truly lost? Nothing. Because you are not the body. You are the eternal awareness that watches, that knows, that simply is. When we think about death in the conventional sense, we associate it with the end of life, the body ceasing to function, the mind quieting, the cessation of all the things we believe define us. But what if death itself is an illusion? What if the true death, the one that liberates us, happens when we stop clinging to the very idea of death? Imagine for a moment that you are a fish swimming in water, moving effortlessly through your environment. Then, suddenly, in a moment of panic, you think, "Oh no, I'm drowning." It sounds absurd. A fish drowning in water. Water is its very source of life. Without it, the fish could not exist. And yet, in its moment of fear, the fish forgets the fundamental truth of its existence. It believes itself to be separate from the very essence that sustains it. In the same way, we humans fear death, even though we are inseparable from the infinite life that flows through us and all things. The body may perish, the mind may dissolve, but the essence that sustains us, the awareness, the consciousness, cannot die. It is the eternal water, and we are the fish. When we speak of true death, we are not referring to the end of the body, but the end of an illusion, the death of the belief that we are limited beings, separate from the whole of existence. This illusion is what gives rise to the fear of death. The ego, the sense of individuality, constructs an identity around itself, one that is fragile, dependent on external factors, and ultimately bound to the impermanence of the body. It creates the illusion of a me, a separate individual with a birth date and a death date, isolated in the vastness of existence. But what if this identity is nothing more than a temporary role, a fleeting character in an eternal play? What if the real death we must experience is the death of the ego itself, the realization that we are not the character we believe ourselves to be, but the awareness that observes the play? Great spiritual teachers have pointed to this truth time and time again. The identity we cling to, the person with a name, a past, and a future, is a construct of the mind. From an early age, we are taught to identify with roles: son, daughter, student, worker, parent. We believe we are our thoughts, our emotions, and the body we inhabit. But what if all of this, the body, the thoughts, the emotions, are simply passing phenomena? What if we are none of these things? Ego death is the recognition that we are not our thoughts, not our emotions, not our physical form, and not the stories we tell ourselves. We are the awareness that witnesses all of these things. The ego is like a cloud passing through the sky. It seems real, solid, and significant, but it is temporary and ever-changing. The sky, however, remains untouched. It is always there, holding space for the clouds to come and go. The sky does not disappear when a cloud vanishes, it simply remains. In the same way, when we awaken to the truth of who we are, we realize that we are not the fleeting identity of the ego. We are the vast, unchanging awareness beyond it. The person we believe ourselves to be is nothing more than a transient thought, a passing illusion. The true self, the one who witnesses all, does not die. It cannot die because it is not bound by time or space. It is the eternal awareness that exists beyond all form. To understand ego death, imagine yourself in a dream. In the dream, you play a character. You have thoughts, desires, fears. You move through the dream world, believing that the character is who you truly are. But then, suddenly, you wake up. The moment you open your eyes, you realize that the character in the dream was never real. It was only a projection of your mind. And just like that, the dream ends. This is the nature of ego death. It is a shift in perception, a waking up from the illusion of separateness. The I we cling to is not the true self. It is not the body, the mind, or the story we tell ourselves. It is the awareness in which all these things arise and dissolve. When the ego dissolves, we wake up to the truth of our being. Along the path of awakening, there are moments of profound realization when the grip of the ego loosens and the illusion of separation begins to fade. It is like the moment the fish realizes it is not drowning. It is swimming in the very water that sustains it. In these moments, we see that we are not separate from the universe. We are the universe, experiencing itself through this body, this mind, this temporary form. Great masters throughout history have spoken of this fundamental truth. Sri Ramana Maharshi once said that the ego is nothing more than a thought. It is not a solid entity. It is a mental construct, a collection of memories, fears, and desires that we mistake for our true self. But when we inquire deeply into the nature of the self, we find that there is no solid me at the center of it all. There is only awareness. When we see this clearly, the ego dissolves, like a mirage that vanishes when we recognize it for what it is. Ego. Death is not something to fear. It is not an annihilation, but a liberation, the recognition that we are not bound by time, space, or form. We are not limited to the body or the mind. We are the timeless awareness that transcends all things. And when we see this truth, we are free. Free from the fear of death, free from the fear of loss, free from the illusion of separation. In reality, ego death is the ultimate freedom. It is the realization that we were never truly born, and we will never truly die. The body may change, the mind may change, but the awareness that we are remains untouched, eternal, and free. Spiritual teachers describe enlightenment as nothing more than awakening to this truth. It is not about gaining something new, but recognizing what has always been present. It is the realization that we are not the body, not the mind, not the ego. We are the awareness in which all things arise. And in this recognition, there is peace. There is liberation. There is a knowing beyond words. Sri Anandamayi Ma expressed this truth beautifully when she said that the true self is beyond birth and death. It is ever present, ever free. It is the very essence of existence itself. This is the essence of ego, death. The realization that the self we have believed in is merely a temporary illusion. That beyond all form, beyond all concepts, beyond all limitations, there is something infinite and eternal. It is the awareness that has always been here, witnessing the journey from birth to death, and it will continue to witness long after this particular life has come to an end. So what does true death really mean? It is not the end of the body, it is the end of the illusion. The death of the belief that we are separate, isolated beings. It is the recognition that we are not the body, not the mind, not the ego, but the infinite, eternal awareness that gives rise to all things. And when we awaken to this truth, we do not fear death. We do not mourn what was never real to begin with. Instead, we live, not as separate beings trapped in fleeting identities, but as the awareness that has always been and will always. When we begin to understand the profound truth that we are not the body, not the mind, not the ego, but the awareness beneath it all, something shifts within us. This shift isn't just intellectual, it is deeply transformative. It alters the way we see ourselves, the world, and our place within it. Realizing that we are timeless awareness beyond birth and death liberates us from the fear that has gripped humanity for centuries. The fear of death is the foundation of so many of our anxieties, something we are taught to dread from an early age, believing it to be the one inescapable certainty. But what if that fear is built on a misunderstanding? What if death isn't something to be feared because it isn't the end, but merely a transition, a shift in form, much like changing clothes? Imagine what life would look like if you truly understood that you cannot die, that you are not this body but the awareness that witnesses everything. Suddenly, death loses its power over you. It can no longer dictate how you live. But this realization doesn't just free us from the fear of death, it also frees us from the fear of truly living. When we recognize that we are not our transient identities, we begin to see life differently. We no longer feel trapped by the roles we play, the labels we wear, or the expectations placed upon us. We see them for what they are, temporary, fleeting aspects of the human experience. There is no need to cling to them, to defend them, or to let them define us. And in that letting go, we find true freedom. Life stops being a race to some imaginary finish line. It stops being about destinations, achievements, and external validation. Instead, it becomes something to experience, moment by moment, without grasping or resisting. We no longer see life as something to conquer, but something to flow with. There is no finish line, just the endless unfolding of existence, and we are part of it. This is where a real transformation takes place. We shift from a mindset of fear and striving to one of acceptance and presence. We begin to live with an open heart, ready to embrace whatever comes, knowing that our true nature is not defined by external circumstances, but by the awareness in which everything arises. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools to cultivate this shift. It allows us to step back from the constant noise of the mind, the relentless identification with thoughts, emotions, and experiences. In stillness, we create space to observe rather than react, to witness the thoughts, the emotions, and even the sensations in the body without attachment. And in that witnessing, we begin to recognize the deeper truth. We are not the passing thoughts or emotions. We are the awareness in which they arise. Through meditation, we train ourselves to remain centered even as life moves around us. We stop grasping for control, stop resisting what is, and instead surrender to the natural flow of existence, trusting that we are part of something far greater than our individual selves. This is the essence of living beyond fear. But meditation isn't just about sitting still for a few minutes each day. It's about bringing that presence into every moment, being fully engaged with life without attachment, without trying to force it to be something it's not. Every moment becomes an opportunity to practice awareness, to step beyond the mind, beyond fear, and rest in the truth of who we are. Letting go of fear is an essential part of this shift. When we realize that we are not the body, not the mind, not the ego, fear begins to lose its grip. Fear thrives on the illusion of separateness, the belief that we are isolated, vulnerable, and subject to loss. But when we recognize ourselves as pure awareness, we see fear for what it really is, a passing thought, a temporary feeling with no real power unless we give it power. This doesn't mean fear won't arise. It will. Fear is part of the human experience. But when we know we are not the fear, we stop reacting to it in the same way. We stop identifying with it. We simply observe it, like a cloud drifting across the sky. The cloud comes and goes, but the sky remains untouched. We are not the cloud. We are the sky. This is why embracing life as a journey rather than a destination is so powerful. When we are always striving to get somewhere, to accomplish something, to check off the next milestone, we are never truly present. We are always focused on the next thing, always waiting for some future moment to bring us fulfillment. But when we shift our perspective, we begin to see the beauty in the unfolding of life itself. There is no perfect destination, only the experience of this moment, and it is already complete. And here's the truth. If we truly understand that we do not die, that we are eternal awareness beyond birth and death, then what is left to fear? If death is nothing more than a transition, then most of our everyday fears lose their weight. Suddenly, so many of the things we stress over seem trivial. We spend so much energy caught up in worries that, in the grand scheme of things, are just passing clouds in the sky. The fear of loss, the fear of failure, the fear of not being enough. All of these are illusions of the ego. And when we step beyond the ego, we see these fears for what they are. Thoughts, fleeting and insubstantial, with no real hold on us unless we let them. Living beyond fear means living authentically. No longer do we need to conform, to seek approval, or to play roles that don't align with our truth. We live from a place of presence, from a place of trust in the natural unfolding of existence. And in that trust, we find peace. In that peace, we are finally free. When we let go of resistance, we can experience life fully, without anxiety, without attachment, without fear. We can love deeply, work with joy, play without hesitation, and simply be. In this space of presence, we discover what it truly means to be alive. Until the real you comes to light, you are not truly alive. That might sound dramatic, like some kind of mystical rebirth or superhero-style awakening, where you burst from a cocoon of ignorance, wings unfurling as you ascend into enlightenment. And while it may not be quite that theatrical, unless you enjoy grand entrances, there's a deep truth in these words. The real you is not your name, your history, or your list of achievements. It's not the person staring back at you in the mirror, nor the identity shaped by society, family, or even your own self-talk. The true you is the silent awareness beneath it all, the presence that observes your body, thoughts, and emotions without attachment. It has always been there, waiting for you to recognize it. That realization alone can shift everything. We've spent so much of our lives identifying with external things. Our roles, careers, relationships, successes, and failures. But what remains when all of that is stripped away? What is left when you let go of the story you've been telling yourself for years, one built on memories of the past and projections of the future? It's as if you've been playing a character in a movie for so long that you've forgotten you're just reading lines. But here's the truth. You are not the actor. You are not the character. You are not even the script. You are the one sitting in the audience, watching it all unfold. When you realize this, the need to cling to roles, labels, and illusions falls away. You shift from living through the lens of the ego to experiencing life from the clarity of pure awareness. Spiritual awakening is not about searching for something outside of yourself. It's about recognizing what has always been within. It's like frantically looking for your glasses, only to realize they've been resting on your head the whole time. The real you was never lost. It has always been right here, waiting for you to wake up to it. Awakening is not an achievement or an end point. It's a realization. When it happens, you see that your thoughts, emotions, and actions are simply part of the dance of existence, but none of them define you. Take a moment and ask yourself, who am I? Immediately, your mind will rush in with answers. I am this person. I am a friend, a parent, successful, struggling. I am my thoughts, my body. But if you go deeper and ask, who is the one saying these things? Something interesting happens. Your mind can provide countless answers, but it cannot define the real you, because the real you is not a concept. It cannot be contained by words. The real you is the awareness in which all things arise, the stillness behind the ever-changing landscape of your life. Now, let's step into this awareness together with a short meditation. No need to sit cross-legged or chant, unless that's your vibe. Just get comfortable, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. As you inhale, feel the air entering your body, filling your lungs. As you exhale, release any tension you may be holding. Just breathe. With each breath, begin to notice the thoughts that arise. Observe them without resistance, like clouds drifting through the sky. Some may be familiar, others random, but none of them are you. You are the sky, not the passing clouds. Now, shift your awareness to your body. Feel its weight against the surface beneath you. Notice the subtle sensations, warmth, coolness, energy. But remember, you are not the body. You are the awareness that perceives it. Expand your awareness to the space around you. Feel the air on your skin, the distant sounds in your environment. But once again, know this. You are not the environment. You are the awareness in which the environment exists. As you continue breathing, allow yourself to simply rest in this knowing. There is nothing to do, nothing to control. Just be. Let go of every label, every identity, and rest in the truth of what you are. Pure, boundless awareness. Feel the stillness, the peace that arises when you step beyond the mind's distractions. In this moment, you are simply here, fully present, fully alive. The true you has never been anywhere else. Now gently bring your awareness back to the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes. And remember, the real you is always here. You don't need to search for it. It's already within you. So the next time someone tells you, you only live once, just smile and say, not quite. I'm on my 5,000th playthrough. Because in reality, life isn't about chasing the illusion of a singular existence. It's about realizing that you are the awareness in which all experiences arise and fade. You've always been here, and you always will be, just in different forms. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Has this perspective shifted how you see life, or even just your grocery list? Because, let's be honest, you're not actually going to disappear when the milk expires. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need this reminder. After all, this might just be their 5,000th playthrough too.